The bridge of the Earth Defense Force frigate Defiant hummed with quiet activity. Captain Alan Mitchell sat in his command chair, watching the main view screen as it displayed the vastness of space at the edge of humanity's solar system. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the armrest, a habit he'd developed during his 15 years of service. Another quiet patrol, he muttered, more to himself than to his crew. Lieutenant Noah Parker looked up from his tactical station. "Quiet is good, sir. Means our borders are secure." "True enough," Mitchell replied with a slight smile. At 45, Mitchell had spent most of his adult life in service to Earth's defense forces. His dark hair was showing streaks of gray at the temples, and the lines around his eyes had deepened over the years, but his gaze remained sharp and alert. "Captain, I'm detecting an anomaly," announced Ensign Diane Russell from the sensor station. Her voice carried an edge of concern that immediately caught Mitchell's attention. "Show me," he ordered, sitting up straighter. The main screen shifted to display a section of space that appeared to be rippling. It reminded Mitchell of heat waves rising from hot pavement on a summer day back on Earth. "What am I looking at, Ensign?" "Unknown, sir. Energy readings are off the charts. It's like space itself is being folded." Lieutenant Parker moved to the sensor station, studying the readings over Russell's shoulder. "Sir, this matches the theoretical models for artificial wormhole creation, but the scale is enormous, much larger than anything we've achieved." Before Mitchell could respond, the rippling intensified. The fabric of space seemed to tear open, and through that tear emerged the nose of a massive ship, then another and another. Within minutes, the Defiant's sensors were tracking over 30 vessels, each one dwarfing their frigate. "Battle stations," Mitchell ordered calmly. Warning klaxons sounded throughout the ship as crew members rushed to their emergency positions. "Are they charging weapons?" Mitchell asked. Parker shook his head. "Negative, sir. They appear to be in a standard formation, but no weapon signatures detected. Open a channel. All frequencies, standard greeting package." Communications Officer Kelly Wright worked her console. "Channel open, sir. Transmitting first contact protocols." The bridge fell silent as they waited. Mitchell studied the alien fleet on the screen. Their ships were beautiful in a strange way, sleek and crystalline, with flowing lines that seemed almost organic. They glowed with soft blue light that pulsed, in a steady rhythm. "Sir, we're receiving a response," Wright announced. "Audio and visual." "On screen," Mitchell ordered. The view screen shifted to show the interior of what appeared to be another command center. In the center stood a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The alien wore elaborate robes of shifting colors that caught the light with each movement. "I am Ambassador Zalthon of the Galactic Hegemony," the being said in perfect English. "Your primitive translation devices are unnecessary. We have already analyzed your languages." Mitchell stood. "I am Captain Alan Mitchell of the Earth Defense Force frigate Defiant. On behalf of Earth and humanity, I welcome you." The alien's expression remained neutral, but Mitchell noticed a slight tremor in its long, thin fingers. "The Eternal Hegemony acknowledges your greeting, Captain," Zalthon replied. "We have come to offer Earth the opportunity to join our grand collective. 32 civilizations already enjoy the benefits of our rule. You will be the 33rd. Mitchell's eyebrows rose. "I wasn't aware we were seeking new management, Ambassador." The alien blinked slowly. "Perhaps I was unclear. This is not an invitation, but a formality. The terms of your surrender and assimilation are being transmitted to your ship now. You have one planetary rotation to accept." The screen went dark, returning to the view of the alien fleet. "Well, that was direct," Parker muttered. "Sir, they've transmitted a large data package," Wright reported. "Route it to the conference room and get Dr. Grant up here immediately." 20 minutes later, Captain Mitchell sat at the head of the conference table. Around him were his senior officers and Dr. Olivia Grant, the ship's xenobiologist and first contact specialist. On the wall screen scrolled the terms sent by the hegemony. Basically, they want us to dismantle our military, place all technology under their control, and accept guidance from their appointed overseers, summarized Commander. Frank Winters, the ship's executive officer. Dr. Grant leaned forward. She was a woman in her late 30s with intelligent eyes and a thoughtful demeanor. Captain, there's something odd about their communication. Besides the fact that they want to take over our planet? Yes. Grant tapped her tablet, bringing up the video of Ambassador Zalthon. Look at the physical cues. The slight tremor in the hands. The dilation of the pupils. The stance, weight shifted back, ready to retreat. What are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying that despite their technological superiority and their demands, the ambassador was showing clear signs of fear. The room fell silent as this information sank in. They're afraid of us? Parker asked incredulously. Why would they fear humans when they've conquered 32 other species? Dr. Grant shook her head. I don't know, but fear is a universal biological response, and I'm seeing it clearly in their representative. Mitchell stood up and paced the length of the conference room. Options, people. Standard protocol would be to relay this to Earth Command and stall. For time, Winters offered. We could try to gather more intelligence, suggested Parker. If they are afraid, maybe we can use that. Mitchell nodded. Dr. Grant, when the ambassador returns for our answer, I want you monitoring every aspect of their communication. Look for any weakness or tell we can exploit. Yes, Captain. 12 hours later, Ambassador Zalthon appeared on the view screen again. This time Mitchell noticed what Grant had pointed out, the subtle signs of tension in the alien's posture. Have you accepted the generous terms of the hegemony? Zalthon asked. Mitchell stood tall, hands clasped behind his back. Ambassador, I have reviewed your terms with my government. Earth respectfully declines. There was a moment of silence. The ambassador's large eyes widened, and Mitchell clearly saw the tremor in its hands intensify. Perhaps you misunderstand, Zalthon said, voice wavering slightly. The hegemony's technological superiority is absolute. Resistance would be unwise. Nevertheless, we decline, Mitchell repeated firmly. Humans value their freedom above all else. The ambassador seemed at a loss for words, its mouth opening and closing without sound. Finally, it gathered itself. This is unexpected. The hegemony will consider your foolishness. You will have one more opportunity to reconsider. Communication ended abruptly. Mitchell turned to find his bridge crew staring at him. Sir, Parker said slowly, did we just refuse surrender to an alien armada that could probably obliterate us? We did, Mitchell confirmed. And did you notice? They didn't immediately attack. They retreated to consider our response. Dr. Grant's eyes lit with understanding. They expected immediate compliance. Our refusal caught them completely off guard. Exactly. Mitchell returned to his chair. Send a coded message to Earth Command with everything we've learned and my assessment. Tell them to prepare for war, but also, he paused, tell them I don't think these aliens know what war actually is. As the Defiant maintained its position, the crew watched the hegemony fleet withdraw to a position just beyond the orbit of Pluto. The massive ships formed a perfect circle, their blue lights pulsing in unison. What now, Captain? Asked Commander Winters. Mitchell's eyes never left the screen. Now we wait, and we plan. Because I think humanity just met its first interstellar bully. And like most bullies, they don't know what to do when someone stands up to them. In the darkness of space, Earth's tiny frigate faced off against the might of an empire. No shots had been fired, no battles fought. But the first move in humanity's most important game had just been played, and somehow, against all odds, it felt like a victory. 3 months had passed since first contact with the galactic hegemony. The massive alien fleet remained positioned just beyond Pluto's orbit, a constant reminder of the threat hanging over Earth. Yet no attack had come. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, Admiral Susan Blackwood stood before a large holographic display showing the positions of both Earth and hegemony forces. At 52, Blackwood had earned her reputation as a brilliant strategist during the Mars colonial conflict. Her short gray hair and stern expression gave her an air of authority that few questioned. They've sent another diplomatic request, she said to the assembled leaders of Earth's United Military Command. That's the 5th one this month. Director Jack Freeman of the newly formed Xenopolitical Strategy Office adjusted his glasses. The terms keep getting better. They've gone from demanding our complete surrender to offering us special status within their hegemony. They're desperate, Blackwood stated flatly. But why, that's what I want to know. The door to the command center slid open and a young man rushed in, clutching a tablet. Kyle Harrison was only 28, but his skills as an intelligence analyst had earned him a place at these high-level meetings. Admiral, Director, I think I've found something, Harrison said, slightly out of breath. Blackwood raised an eyebrow. This better be important, Harrison. It is, ma'am. He connected his tablet to the main display. The hologram shifted to show alien text with human translations. We've been decoding the data Captain Mitchell's team captured from the hegemony databases. I found historical records of their previous conquests. The display showed a timeline spanning thousands of years with 32 points marking different alien species. Every single one of these civilizations surrendered immediately when confronted by the hegemony, Harrison explained. No resistance, no war, nothing. Director Freeman leaned forward. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Harrison nodded. Yes, sir. The hegemony has never actually fought a war. Ever. They've conquered 32 species, but not once did any of them fight. Back. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They don't know how to fight, Blackwood said slowly. That's why they're afraid of us. Because we didn't surrender. On the diplomatic vessel orbiting between Earth and Mars, Dr. Olivia Grant sat across from Ambassador Zal Thon. These meetings had become routine. The ambassador would present new terms and Grant would politely decline on behalf of Earth. But today, Grant had a different agenda. Before we discuss your latest proposal, Ambassador, I wonder if you might satisfy my curiosity about your people, she said pleasantly. Zal Thon tilted his head. What would you like to know, Dr. Grant? Your species has achieved remarkable technological advancement. Yet we know so little about your biology, your evolution. Where did your species begin? The question seemed to relax the ambassador. The Eternals evolved on the paradise world of Thaxis Prime. Unlike your harsh Earth, our world knew no predators, no natural disasters, no scarcity. Fascinating, Grant said, genuinely interested. So your species never had to fight for survival? Fight? Zal Thon seemed confused by the concept. No. Our evolution was driven by cooperation and mental development. The Eternals were blessed with psionic abilities that allowed us to communicate and connect with all life forms on our world. And these abilities helped you establish the hegemony? The ambassador nodded proudly. When we achieved space travel, we found other intelligent species. All recognized the superiority of our civilization and joined us willingly. Grant carefully noted the ambassador's use of the word willingly rather than voluntarily. 1. Last question, if I may. How does the hegemony handle species that resist joining? For just a moment, fear flashed across the ambassador's face before he regained his composure. Such a situation has never arisen, he said stiffly. Now shall we discuss the new terms? But Dr. Grant had already gotten the answer she needed. Lieutenant Noah Parker led a small team into the shuttle bay of the Defiant. They had just returned from their mission, a brief probing attack against an outlying hegemony vessel. Captain Mitchell was waiting for them. Report, Lieutenant. Parker removed his helmet, his expression a mixture of disbelief and amusement. Sir, it was strange. We approached their patrol ship as planned. When they detected us, they immediately broadcast surrender signals. They surrendered to our shuttle? Mitchell asked. Yes, sir. But when we continued our approach and fired a warning shot, Parker paused, searching for the right words. They panicked, sir. Their ship began moving erratically. We intercepted communications that sounded like screaming. Then they simply fled at maximum speed. Mitchell's brow furrowed. Casualties? None, sir. We never got close enough to actually engage them. The captain nodded slowly. Get cleaned up, then report to the briefing room. Earth Command will want to hear this firsthand. In the Grand Council chamber aboard the Hegemony flagship Eternal Dominance, chaos reigned. Grand Overseer Vex Moore, the supreme leader of the Galactic Hegemony, struggled to maintain order as various sub-commanders shouted over one another. "Silence!" Vex Moore finally roared, his psionic abilities amplifying his voice to painful levels for those present. The chamber fell quiet. Vex Moore, ancient even by his species standards, leaned heavily on his ceremonial staff. His pale blue skin had faded to an almost translucent white with age. "Now," he said more calmly, "we will address this crisis in an orderly fashion." Sub-Hierarch. "Zanvale, report on the human attack." A younger Eternal rose from his seat, visibly trembling. "Great One, the humans attacked one of our observer vessels without provocation. They used directed energy weapons of primitive but effective design." "Casualties?" Vex Moore asked. "None, Great One. The vessel managed to escape." Murmurs of relief spread through the chamber. "And what of our ultimatum to the humans?" Vex Moore asked. Ambassador Zalthon stood. "They continue to refuse our terms, Great One. Even the most generous offers are rejected. These humans," he hesitated, "they show no fear." This statement caused another uproar in the chamber. "How can they not fear?" one counselor cried. "All sentient beings recognize the power of the hegemony. Their history," Zalthon explained reluctantly. "I have studied it. These humans have fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. Their entire evolution was shaped by conflict and violence. They are—" he looked around nervously. "They are predators." The word sent a wave of terror through the chamber. In the hegemony's 50,000 years of existence, they had never encountered a predator species with spacefaring capabilities. "What do they want?" Vex Moore asked quietly. Zalthon shook his head. "I don't know, Great One. They speak of freedom and sovereignty, concepts that make little sense in the harmony of the hegemony." "And if we simply leave?" another counselor suggested hopefully. "They will follow," Zalthon said with certainty. "They are already expanding to other planets in their system. Their nature drives them to explore, to expand. Eventually they will reach our worlds." Grand Overseer Vex Moore closed his eyes, deep in thought. When he opened them, his decision was made. We cannot surrender our way of life to these predators. We must find a way to contain them. He turned to the military commander. "Prepare our forces, we must show strength." No one in the chamber had the courage to point out that in the hegemony's long history, its military had never actually been used for combat. Back on Earth, Kyle Harrison burst into Admiral Blackwood's office without knocking. "Admiral, we've intercepted their communications," he exclaimed. "We managed to tap into their council meeting." Blackwood looked up sharply. "And?" "They're terrified of us," Harrison said, placing his tablet on her desk. "They've never encountered a predator species before. Their entire society evolved without conflict. They don't know how to fight a war." Blackwood reviewed the translated transcript, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Get me Director Freeman and the Joint Chiefs," she ordered. "I think it's time we showed the hegemony what humans are really capable of." Harrison hesitated at the door. "What exactly are you planning, Admiral?" Blackwood's smile widened. "Not an attack, Harrison. Something far more effective against an enemy who doesn't understand war." "What's that?" "Psychological warfare." She looked at the star map on her wall, where the hegemony fleet was marked in blue. "We're going to scare them so badly they'll do exactly what they've made 32 other species do." "Surrender?" Harrison asked. "No," Blackwood said. "Run." Major Catherine Wells stood before a wall of screens in Earth's forward operating base on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Each screen showed a different piece of human history. Ancient battles, boxing matches, action movies, extreme sports, and military training exercises. "These are our weapons," she told the assembled team of specialists. At 36, Wells had made her name studying psychological warfare and enemy morale. Her short brown hair framed a face that looked deceptively gentle until one noticed the intensity in her green eyes. Videos? Asked one of the technicians skeptically. We're fighting an alien empire with videos, Wells smiled. We're not fighting them at all. That's the point. According to everything we've learned, the hegemony has no concept of actual warfare. They've never had to fight. Their entire civilization evolved without predators or resource competition. She walked along the screen, stopping at footage of a historical documentary about the Battle of Normandy. To us, this is history. To them, it will be horror beyond imagination. She turned to face the room. Our job is to create a mythology of humanity that will make the hegemony decide we're not worth the trouble. Dr. Greg Powell, a xenocultural anthropologist, stepped forward. We've analyzed the cultural markers we've been able to extract from their communications. The Eternals value harmony above all else. Their society is built on consensus and uniformity. Displayed images of hegemony architecture, flowing symmetrical structures without sharp angles or contrasting colors. They find disorder and unpredictability deeply disturbing, Powell continued. Even their language has no words for concepts like ambush or surprise attack. These are literally unthinkable ideas to them. Wells nodded. Which is exactly what we're going to use against them. At the back of the room, Chief Engineer Ben Martinez raised his hand. My team has completed the prototypes you requested, Major. The shock and awe non-lethal weapons are ready for deployment. Excellent, Wells said. Let's begin Phase 1. Sub-Hierarch Zan Vale stood on the command deck of his vessel, the Harmony of Stars. As a military commander of the hegemony, he had spent centuries studying the theoretical concepts of conflict resolution and force projection. But in all his long life, he had never expected to actually use this knowledge. Status of the human fleet? He asked his sensor operator. Still in their defensive formation around their moon base. Sub-Hierarch, the operator replied. No change. And wait! The operator's voice rose in alarm. We're receiving a transmission from the humans. Display it, Zan Vale ordered. The main screen flickered to life, but instead of the usual human diplomat, it showed scenes that made every Eternal on the bridge freeze in horror. Humans, many humans, charging across open ground while explosions erupted around them. Humans in primitive armor smashing into each other with metal weapons. Humans bleeding. Humans fighting hand-to-hand. Humans using crude projectile weapons against each other. Cut it off, Zan Vale shouted, but the operator seemed paralyzed by what they were seeing. The sub-hierarch had to physically push the stunned Eternal aside to stop the transmission himself. Silence fell over the bridge. Several crew members were trembling visibly. What was that? One finally asked. Their history, Zan Vale said grimly. This is what the ambassador warned us about. The humans are showing us what they've done to their own kind. Imagine what they plan to do to us. A junior officer approached cautiously. Sub-hierarch, we're receiving similar transmissions across all our vessels. The humans are broadcasting on every frequency. Zan Vale closed his eyes briefly. Block the transmissions. We've tried, sir. They keep finding new frequencies, and some of our crew. The officer hesitated. What about them? They're watching, sir. They can't seem to look away. On Titan, Major Wells watched the data streaming in from their sensor probes. They're reacting exactly as we predicted. Their ships are becoming disorganized. Communications between vessels show increasing signs of panic. Dr. Powell looked up from his analysis station. The psychological impact appears to be spreading through their fleet. Their command structure is highly centralized. When one leader shows fear, the subordinates amplify it. Martinez approached with a tablet displaying technical readouts. The first wave of shock drones is ready for deployment, Major. Wells nodded. Launch them. The warning alarms on the Harmony of Stars blared as hundreds of small objects were detected approaching from the direction of Titan. What are they? Zan Vale demanded. Unknown, sub-hierarch, the sensor operator replied, voice shaking. They appear to be some kind of primitive drones. Are they weapons? Scans show no explosive materials or energy signatures. Before the operator could finish, the drones surrounded the hegemony vessels. Then simultaneously, they activated. Brilliant. Flashes of light strobed around the ships. Thunderous sounds, recordings of Earth's most terrifying natural phenomena, blasted across all communication channels. Holographic projections of charging human soldiers appeared to be running directly. At the hegemony ships, it was chaos, designed perfectly for a species that had never experienced chaos before. 3 hegemony vessels broke formation immediately, their captains ordering full retreat without waiting for authorization. Another ship accidentally collided with its neighbor, while trying to evade the harmless drones. On the command deck of the Harmony of Stars, Zanvale struggled to maintain order. "They're not attacking us," he shouted over the panic. "These are just sensory devices. Hold your positions." But it was too late. More ships were breaking away, pushing their engines to maximum as they fled from the human drones. The carefully arranged hegemony formation was collapsing, and then cutting through the chaos, a single message broadcast directly to Zanvale's command console. "Run." Back on Earth, Admiral Blackwood watched the live tactical display as the hegemony fleet scattered. "It's working better than we hoped," she said to Director Freeman, who stood beside her. "They're breaking apart with barely a shot fired." Freeman nodded, adjusting his glasses. "Intercepted communications show their central worlds are in disarray. Their leaders are arguing about whether to commit more forces or withdraw entirely." "And the message?" Blackwood asked. Kyle Harrison, who had been monitoring the communication systems, grinned. "Delivered to every ship in their fleet, Admiral. A single word, displayed in their own language on their primary systems. Run." Blackwood allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the simplest messages are the most effective. "Admiral," a communications officer called out. "We're receiving a transmission from the hegemony flagship. It's Grand Overseer Vexmore himself." "On screen," Blackwood ordered. The aged leader of the hegemony appeared, looking haggard and frightened. His once proud posture was now stooped, and his hands trembled visibly. "People of Earth," he began, his voice wavering, We have reconsidered our position regarding your world. The hegemony recognizes Earth's unique status and withdraws all claims to authority over your system." Blackwood stepped forward. "And the other systems you've conquered? The 32 species under your control?" Vexmore blinked in surprise at the question. They are part of the hegemony. They joined willingly." "Did they?" Blackwood asked coldly. "Or did they surrender because they had no concept of resistance, just like you?" The Grand Overseer had no answer. "Here are our terms," Blackwood continued. "The hegemony will withdraw from this region of space entirely. You will grant independence to any species that requests it, and you will never again expand your territory through intimidation or threats." "And if we refuse?" Vexmore asked, though his tone made it clear he already knew the answer. Blackwood's expression hardened. "Then we'll show you what humans are truly capable of when we actually decide to fight." The transmission ended abruptly as Vexmore cut the connection. "Will they comply?" Freeman asked quietly. Blackwood looked back at the tactical display where the hegemony ships were still scattering in disarray. "They already are," she said. "Look at them. They're running." On the Defiant, now stationed near Jupiter, Captain Mitchell received the news with mixed feelings. "So that's it?" Lieutenant Parker asked. "We scared an interstellar empire into retreating without firing a shot?" Mitchell gazed out at the stars. "Not quite without firing a shot. We fired a warning shot and they didn't know how to respond. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that overwhelming force would always result in immediate surrender. Because it always had before," Dr. Grant added, "until they met humans." Mitchell nodded slowly. "Humanity's greatest strength has always been our adaptability, forged through countless conflicts and challenges. We survived because we learned to fight when necessary." "And now?" Parker asked. "Now," Mitchell said, "we help build something better than the hegemony. A galactic community based on mutual respect, not fear." As the Defiant turned toward home, the crew could see the last of the hegemony ships disappearing into the darkness of space, running from the predators they had never been equipped to face. 6 months after the hegemony's retreat, the former council chambers of the alien empire had been transformed. Where once only the blue-skinned Eternals were permitted, now representatives of dozens of species gathered. The chamber itself had been redesigned. The oppressive symmetry replaced with a circular arrangement that gave each delegation equal standing. President Eliza Reyes of the United Earth government stood at the center. At 58, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had guided humanity through its greatest crisis. Her silver-streaked black hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her dark eyes took in the assembled aliens with calm assurance. "Welcome to the first meeting of the Galactic Cooperative," she announced. "Today marks a new beginning for all our peoples." Around the chamber, translation devices hummed quietly, converting her words into the languages of the former hegemony species. Many of these beings had never seen a human before, and they watched Reyes with a mixture of curiosity and lingering fear. For thousands of years, the hegemony maintained what they called peace, Reyes continued. But true peace cannot exist where there is no freedom. Today, we start building a different kind of community, one based on mutual respect and cooperation, rather than domination. In the Earth delegation, Admiral Mitchell, promoted from captain after the crisis, listened with pride. Beside him sat Dr. Olivia Grant, now head of the Interspecies Relations Bureau. Both had been instrumental in understanding the hegemony and developing the strategy that led to their withdrawal. Among the alien delegates, a particularly frail-looking Eternal rose. Elder Kithral was one of the few members of the former ruling species who had chosen to work with the humans rather than retreat with his people. "If I may address the assembly," Kithral said, his voice thin but clear. President Reyes nodded. "The floor is yours, Elder." The ancient alien looked around at the diverse gathering. "Many of you still fear the humans. You have heard stories of their warlike nature, seen the images they broadcast to drive away the hegemony. But there is something you must understand about both them and us." He moved slowly to the center of the chamber. The Eternals evolved on a world without predators, without competition, without conflict. Our psionic abilities allowed us to communicate with all life on our planet. We never developed the capacity to understand violence because we never needed it. Several delegates nodded. Their own species had similar peaceful origins. When we encountered other spacefaring species, we found that most had evolved in similar environments. Those that hadn't were usually primitive, not yet capable of threatening us. For 50,000 years, this pattern held true. Kithral turned to face the human delegation. Then we found Earth, a world of predators and prey, a world where competition drove evolution, a world where the dominant species had spent its entire history fighting, often against itself. Murmurs spread through the chamber as the delegates considered his words. The concept of actually fighting was so alien to us that when humans refused to surrender, we had no response. Our entire civilization broke under the pressure of merely considering actual conflict. President Reyes stepped forward again. "What Elder Kithral says is true. Humanity's history is filled with conflict. But it is also filled with cooperation, innovation, and overcoming differences. The same adaptability that made us formidable opponents can make us valuable allies." She gestured to the chamber around them. "This cooperative is built on the principle that diversity, of thought, of evolution, of approach, makes us all stronger. We do not seek to rule as the hegemony did. We seek to build together." The assembly broke into discussions, some enthusiastic, others cautious, but none showed the blind fear that had characterized the hegemony's reaction to humanity. Later that evening, Admiral Mitchell found himself on an observation deck overlooking the gas giant around which the former hegemony capital station orbited. The swirling clouds below reminded him of storms on Jupiter. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Dr. Grant said, joining him at the railing. "Worth the trip," Mitchell agreed. "Though I'm still getting used to being called Admiral." Grant smiled. "You earned it. Your decision to stand firm against that first ultimatum changed the course of history. I just did my job." Mitchell turned to face her. "How's your new bureau coming along?" "Challenging," Grant admitted. 32 species, all trying to figure out how to exist without the hegemony telling them what to do. Some are adapting quickly. Others, she shook her head. Centuries of submission leave deep marks. Mitchell nodded thoughtfully. And the Eternals? Any sign they might try to rebuild their empire elsewhere? Not according to our intelligence. Most have retreated to their homeworld. Elder Kithral says they're going through a profound cultural re-evaluation. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of a small alien child. The youngster belonged to the vril species, six-limbed with iridescent scales and large, curious eyes. "Excuse me," the child said through a small translator device. "Are you the humans who made the Eternals run away?" Mitchell exchanged an amused glance with Grant. "I suppose we are," he answered kindly. The child tilted its head. "Why did you tell them to run if you weren't going to chase them?" The question caught Mitchell off guard. He crouched down to the child's level. "Sometimes," he explained, "the most effective weapon is the one you never have to use." The child considered this, then nodded seriously. "My parents say humans are scary but good. Is that true?" Grant joined Mitchell in crouching down. "We can be scary when we need to be," she said gently. "But we would rather be good, if given the chance." This seemed to satisfy the young alien, who scampered away to rejoin. "Its parents, out of the mouths of babes," Mitchell murmured. "I never thought of it that way. We told them to run, but we never intended to chase them." "It worked, though," Grant pointed out, "and with minimal loss of life on either side." Mitchell looked back out at the swirling clouds below. "Let's hope we can keep it that way." In a secure conference room, President Reyes sat with her top advisors. The public ceremonies were over, but the real work was just beginning. "The truth is," Director Freeman said, studying the reports before him, "we came dangerously close to disaster. If the hegemony had actually attacked instead of retreating, our defenses would have been overwhelmed." Admiral Blackwood nodded grimly. "Their technology was centuries ahead of ours. If they had possessed the will to use it aggressively, Earth would have fallen within days. But they didn't," Reyes pointed out. "Our bluff worked perfectly." "This time," Freeman cautioned. "But now we have a new problem. The former hegemony. Species see us as protectors, warriors, even saviors. We've inherited an enormous responsibility. And a reputation to live up to," added Blackwood. "We presented ourselves as these fearsome warriors. Now we have to somehow maintain that image while actually building peace." President Reyes leaned back in her chair, considering the challenge. "So our greatest victory came from convincing an enemy we were more dangerous than we actually were. And now we have to convince our new allies that we're less dangerous than they fear, while still being protective enough to maintain stability." "That's about the size of it," Freeman agreed. Reyes smiled wryly. "Well, no one said diplomacy was simple." Kyle Harrison, now the head of a new intelligence division focused on former hegemony space, spoke up. "There's another factor to consider. The hegemony controlled only a small portion of our galaxy. What other civilizations might we encounter as we continue to explore?" The question hung in the air, reminding everyone that humanity's first major interstellar crisis might not be its last. "We'll face that when it comes," Reyes said finally. "For now, we focus on building something better than what came before. The hegemony ruled through fear. We have a chance to lead through cooperation and mutual respect." She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "We scared them by telling them to run. Now our challenge is to give them all a reason to stay." As the advisors filed out, Reyes remained, looking at the star chart displaying the vast territory of the former hegemony, now the Galactic Cooperative. 33 species, including humanity, finding their way forward together. It would not be easy. But then, nothing worthwhile ever was. And humanity had always been good at facing challenges, the endurer